a mysterious return. The silence of deep space was broken by the sudden appearance of a ship that shouldn't exist. The UE's determination materialized at the edge of the Sol system like a ghost returning from the dead, its hull gleaming with an otherworldly shimmer that caught the light of distant stars in impossible ways. Captain Sarah Chun stood on the bridge, her dark eyes scanning the tactical display with an intensity that hadn't been there 11 years ago. Her crew moved around her with fluid precision, their movements synchronized in a way that seemed almost choreographed. Each of them bore the same subtle changes that marked their long absence from human space. Eyes that held depths of knowledge no human should possess, reflexes that responded faster than human nerves should allow. The bridge of the determination looked familiar yet alien. The original human technology remained, but it had been enhanced with additions that defied easy categorization. Crystalline interfaces grew from the walls like organic technology, pulsing with soft blue light that seemed to respond to the crew's thoughts rather than their touch. The very air hummed with potential energy that made the hair on their arms stand on end. Commander Marcus Rodriguez, the ship's first officer, looked up from his station with concern etched across his weathered features. His hair had gone completely gray during their time away, though he appeared younger and more vital than when they had left. The transformation had affected them all differently, but none had emerged unchanged. "Captain, we're receiving multiple challenge signals from Earth Defense Command," he reported, his voice carrying new harmonics that resonated strangely in the enhanced bridge. "They're demanding identification and immediate compliance with security protocols. It seems the entire Sol system has been militarized." Sarah nodded, having expected this response. Through the enhanced neural link she now shared with her ship, she could feel the massive defensive installations scattered throughout human space. Weapons platforms that could crack moons orbited every inhabited world. Shield generators powerful, enough to protect entire planets hummed with barely contained energy. The space around Earth bristled with warships of designs she didn't recognize, their hulls scarred by battles fought in their absence. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the ship's chief science officer, was analyzing the sensor data with equipment that blended human engineering with something far more advanced. Her fingers danced across interfaces that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions that had no names in human language. The readings she gathered painted a grim picture of the galaxy they had returned to. "Sarah, I'm detecting massive gravitational anomalies throughout this sector," she said, her voice tight with controlled emotion. "Entire star systems are missing. The energy signatures suggest complete stellar collapse, but not from natural causes. Something consumed them, broke them down to their component particles, and absorbed the energy." The implications hit the bridge crew like a physical blow. They had known this day would come, had been preparing for it during their long exile in spaces between spaces, but seeing the evidence of destruction on such a scale still shook them to their core. The enemy they had learned to fight had already begun its feast on the galaxy. Lieutenant James Park, their communications officer, looked up from his station with barely concealed fear. His enhanced hearing could pick up the desperate transmissions, flooding the communication channels, distress calls from colonies that no longer existed, automated warnings from systems that had gone dark months ago. "Captain, I'm monitoring fleet communications. They're calling it the Devourer War. Whatever hit the outer colonies didn't just destroy them, it unmade them, turned organized matter back into cosmic dust, and fed on the energy released. The survivors are describing things that sound like living voids, entities that exist by consuming the structure of reality itself." Sarah closed her eyes and reached out through the quantum consciousness link that connected her to her crew. In the shared mental space they had learned to inhabit, she could feel their combined knowledge, their enhanced understanding of the threat they faced. and their absolute determination to protect humanity despite the odds. When she opened her eyes again, they glowed with faint inner light that marked her transformation. She had become something more than human during their time in the between spaces, but she had never forgotten what it meant to be human. The courage, the stubborn refusal to accept defeat, the ability to find hope in the darkest circumstances, these qualities had only grown stronger. All stations, prepare for acceleration to Earth orbit. Engineering, keep our new capabilities masked for now. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with before we reveal what we've become. The humans of this time won't be ready to understand what we are until they understand what we face. Chief Engineer David Kim, whose neural interface with the ship's systems allowed him to control matter and energy at the quantum level, nodded from his position at the reality manipulation console. The device looked like crystallized starlight formed into geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly, but it responded to his thoughts with precision that surpassed any mechanical interface. All systems are operating within normal parameters. For human observation, our quantum drives are masked as standard fusion propulsion. Reality interface controls are showing as conventional ship systems. We appear to be nothing more than a missing exploration vessel that somehow survived 11 years in deep space. The journey to Earth took 3 hours, during which they monitored the increasingly frantic communications between human military units. The picture that emerged was one of a species on the brink of extinction, having retreated to their home system, while an unstoppable force consumed everything they had built among the stars. Admiral Patricia Hayes appeared on the main screen. As they approached Earth orbit, her face bearing the weight of command during humanity's darkest hour. She had been a junior officer when they left, ambitious and optimistic about humanity's future among the stars. Now she looked like someone who had seen the end of everything she had sworn to protect. Captain Shun, in the name of all that's holy, tell me you have good news. We've lost contact with 17 colony worlds in the past 6 months. Our scouts report the same thing everywhere. Entire systems reduced to debris fields, number survivors, no explanation for how something could consume matter on such a scale. Sarah chose her words carefully, knowing that the truth would sound like madness to ears that hadn't been prepared for it. Admiral, we encountered something out there. An intelligence that exists between dimensions, ancient beyond human comprehension. They called themselves the Architects, and they taught us about the force that's attacking our colonies. What you're fighting isn't just another alien species. It's a fundamental force of cosmic entropy that awakens when civilizations become too complex, too organized. The Admiral's face went pale. Are you telling me this thing is targeting us because we've become too advanced? That our technology and civilization are what attracted this threat? Yes and no, Dr. Vasquez interjected, her enhanced understanding allowing her to grasp concepts that existed beyond normal physics. The Devourers feed on organized complexity, but they don't just destroy it, they invert it. They turn order into chaos and consume the energy released. Civilizations like ours represent vast concentrations of organized matter and energy, making us natural targets. Commander Rodriguez leaned forward, his expression grim. Admiral, conventional weapons won't work against them. We've run simulations based on what the Architects taught us. Nuclear weapons, antimatter bombs, even planet crackers just provide them with more organized energy to consume. Fighting them with traditional military force is like trying to extinguish a fire by throwing fuel on it. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Admiral Hayes looked between the faces on her screen, searching for some sign that this was all an elaborate mistake or misunderstanding. Then how do we fight them? What did these Architects teach you that gives us hope? Sarah smiled for the first time since their return, and the expression transformed her face with inner radiance that spoke of knowledge beyond human experience. They taught us to become something new, Admiral. Something that can think and act beyond the limitations of three-dimensional space. We're no longer just human, but we haven't forgotten what being human means. We've learned to weaponize hope itself. Revelations of the Void. The conference room aboard Earth Defense Command Station Alpha was filled with the most brilliant minds humanity had produced. Scientists, strategists, philosophers, and engineers sat around a circular table that projected holographic displays of galactic destruction. The data was overwhelming in its scope and terrifying in its implications. Captain Sarah Chun and her senior staff occupied one side of the table, their presence creating an almost palpable tension. In the room, they looked human, spoke with familiar voices, but there was something fundamentally different about them that made everyone else uncomfortable. They moved with perfect coordination, seemed to communicate without speaking, and their eyes held depths of understanding that belonged in no human face. Admiral Hayes had assembled Earth's greatest minds to hear what the crew of the Determination had learned during their 11-year absence. But even she wasn't prepared for the truth they brought back from spaces between spaces. Dr. Vasquez activated a holographic display that showed star charts spanning the known galaxy. Red zones marked areas where entire civilizations had vanished, leaving behind only cosmic debris and gravitational anomalies. The pattern was clear once you knew how to look for it. The destruction moved in waves, consuming the most advanced regions first, working systematically toward the galactic core. The architects called them devourers, but that's just a translation of a concept that doesn't exist in human language. She began, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in dimensions beyond normal hearing. They're not alive in any sense we understand. They're more like a cosmic immune response, a force of nature that activates when the universe detects too much organized complexity in one region. Dr. Martin Reeves, Earth's chief xenobiologist, leaned forward with scientific curiosity overriding his fear. You're describing them as if they're a natural phenomenon rather than a hostile intelligence. How can something without consciousness target specific civilizations? Commander Rodriguez answered, his enhanced understanding allowing him to grasp concepts that existed beyond normal physics. They don't target civilizations, Doctor. They target organized complexity itself. Civilizations just happen to be the largest concentrations of organized matter and energy in the galaxy. When a region reaches a certain threshold of complexity, the devourers awaken and begin the process of cosmic entropy acceleration. The room erupted in worried murmurs as the scientists tried to process implications that challenged everything they thought they knew about the universe. General Marcus Thompson, head of Earth's military forces, slammed his hand on the table to restore order. Enough theory. I need to know how to fight them. What weapons work? What defenses can protect our worlds? Give me something I can use to save human lives. Sarah stood slowly, her movement causing the crystalline interfaces on her uniform to pulse with soft light. The display in the center of the table shifted to show three-dimensional models of battles, fought in spaces that didn't follow normal geometry. The architects fought them for 1,000 years, General. They had weapons that could destroy stars, ships that traveled through time, technologies that we're barely beginning to understand. None of it worked. Every attack just fed the devourers more organized energy to consume. Every defense they built became another source of complex matter to be unmade. Dr. Sarah Okafor, Earth's leading theoretical physicist, had been studying the energy readings from the Determination since its arrival. Her calculations suggested possibilities that violated everything she thought she knew about reality. Captain, the energy signatures from your ship show quantum states that shouldn't be stable in normal space. Your technology appears to operate by manipulating the fundamental structure of reality itself. How is this possible? Lieutenant Park smiled, though the expression held depths of experience that belonged to someone who had lived lifetimes in spaces where time flowed differently. The architects didn't just teach us about the devourers, Doctor. They taught us to think beyond the limitations of three-dimensional existence. We learned to interface directly with quantum probability fields, to manipulate matter and energy. At the subatomic level, using consciousness itself. Chief Engineer Kim activated another display, this one showing the internal structure of human neural tissue, enhanced with crystalline growth patterns that followed mathematical principles unknown to Earth science. The transformation process took 3 years in architect time, though only weeks passed in normal space. They rewrote our rural architecture at the quantum level, allowed our consciousness to exist partially outside normal space-time. Admiral Hayes had been listening with growing amazement and concern. The crew before her described abilities that sounded like magic, but their ship's readings confirmed that they possessed technology beyond anything in Earth's arsenal. You're describing superhuman abilities, Captain. Enhanced reflexes, quantum, consciousness, reality manipulation. How do we know you're still human? How do we know you haven't been turned into weapons against your own species? The question hung in the air like a physical presence. Sarah could feel the fear and suspicion radiating from the assembled humans, their instinctive distrust of anything that challenged their understanding of what was possible. She reached out through her enhanced consciousness, touching the quantum fields that connected all matter in the room. With gentle precision, she caused the molecules in the air to vibrate in patterns that created music, a hauntingly beautiful melody that spoke of hope persisting in the darkest void. We're still human, Admiral. The architects made sure of that. They showed us what happened to species that lost their essential nature during the enhancement process. They become like the architects themselves, pure consciousness without the drive and determination that makes physical existence worth preserving. Dr. Vasquez stood beside her captain, her own enhancements allowing her to demonstrate principles that existed beyond normal physics. She held out her hand and caused water molecules from the air to condense into complex crystalline structures that glowed with inner light. We retained our humanity because that's what makes us effective against the devourers. Our stubbornness, our refusal to accept defeat, our ability to find hope in impossible circumstances. These aren't weaknesses to be overcome. They're weapons that the devourers can't understand or counter. General Thompson was staring at the crystalline structures floating above Dr. Vasquez's palm. You're saying our human nature itself is a weapon against these things? Commander Rodriguez nodded. The devourers feed on inevitability, on civilizations that accept their fate and surrender to entropy. They grow stronger when their enemies despair. When organized beings give up hope, it allows complexity to collapse. But humans don't work that way. We fight harder when the odds are against us. Sarah walked to the large window that showed Earth floating in space below, surrounded by its defensive installations and patrol fleets. The planet looked so small and vulnerable against the vastness of space, but she could feel the determination of every human on its surface, their refusal to give up even when facing cosmic forces beyond their comprehension. The architects chose us because of what we are, not in spite of it. They had become too logical, too accepting of natural laws and inevitable outcomes. When the devourers proved unbeatable through conventional means, they accepted defeat and retreated from physical existence. She turned back to face the assembled leaders of humanity. But humans don't accept defeat. We find ways around natural laws. We refuse to believe that anything is truly impossible. That's why the architects spent 3 years teaching us everything they knew about fighting cosmic entropy. Dr. Reeves had been taking notes frantically, trying to record concepts that challenged his understanding of biology and consciousness. What exactly did they teach you? What capabilities do you possess that conventional humans don't? Lieutenant, Park answered, his enhanced neural pathways allowing him to process and explain concepts that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. We can think in quantum superposition, holding contradictory possibilities in our minds without confusion. We can interface directly with any technology based on quantum principles. We can perceive and manipulate probability fields that determine how reality manifests from moment to moment. Chief Kim added, most importantly, we can teach these abilities to others. The enhancement process the architects developed can be shared, reproduced, adapted for different species and different levels of technological development. Admiral Hayes leaned back in her chair, overwhelmed by the implications of what she was hearing. You're talking about transforming our entire species, changing what it means to be human. Sarah returned to her seat, her enhanced senses picking up the complex mix of fear, hope, and determination that filled the room. We're talking about evolving, Admiral. The Devourers represent a test that every sufficiently advanced civilization must face. Most fail because they try to fight entropy. With order, complexity with more complexity. But the architects discovered another path. Dr. Ockoffer looked up from her calculations. What path? How do you fight a force of cosmic entropy? Sarah smiled, and her expression carried the weight of knowledge gained in spaces where the normal rules of existence didn't apply. You don't fight it, Doctor. You transform it. You turn entropy itself into a weapon against chaos. The architects called it the Prometheus Protocol, humanity's gift to the galaxy. We're going to teach the universe how to evolve beyond the need for cosmic immune responses. The room fell silent as the assembled leaders of humanity tried to grasp the scope of what was being proposed. They were being offered godlike abilities and the chance to save not just their own species, but the entire galaxy. The only price was accepting that humanity would never be the same again. Outside the windows, Earth continued its ancient orbit around the sun, unaware that its children were about to take the next step in an evolution that would echo across the cosmos for millions of years to come.